So I'll ask our presenters all to unmute themselves at this point, and then we will get this started for everybody. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome very much to this presentation co-hosted by the Southwest Valley Chamber of Commerce and Leadership West. You're going to learn all about the upcoming special election for the City of Goodyear. So I would like to say hello to Mayor Georgia Lord, who is listening in, and also joining us visible on camera, Councilmember Brandon Hampton. And glad everybody could join us. I see a nice mix of Chamber of Commerce and others joining us, Chamber of Commerce members joining us. So in case you don't know who I am John Safin, President, CEO of the Southwest Valley Chamber of Commerce. We will keep everybody muted during the presentation. Oh, there's Mayor Lord. You can see her now. Everybody wave. There we go. I have my distinct pleasure to be able to introduce the Executive Director for the West Valley's leading leadership and civic education body organization. Ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Hess.
Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much, John. That was sweet. Today we are here to learn about the City of Goodyear. They're going to be holding a special election in March for residents to consider proposed changes to the city charter. Learn more about the history of the charter, the process to amend the charter, what changes are being proposed, and how Goodyear residents can participate in this upcoming election. And today with us, we have Darcy McCracken from the City Clerk's Office with the City of Goodyear. And with her is Jenna Goad, Assistant to the City Manager with Goodyear. And as John mentioned, we are not going to be utilizing chat today, but you can raise your hand if you have a question, and that can be found at the bottom of the Zoom under reactions. Once you raise your hand and you've had your question answered, we ask that you go back and lower the hand so we know that you have had your question answered. And without further ado, we're excited for you to join us, and we can't wait to hear from you ladies. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Jenna's going to go ahead and bring up the presentation. And I want to thank you all for allowing us to share some information about our upcoming election, which is scheduled to take place March 9th. It is an all-mail ballot election, so it's a little bit different when we've got polling places and you have to show up on that day, but you will be getting ballots if you are residents of Goodyear. So Jenna Goad, Assistant to the City Manager, and myself, I'm Darcy McCracken, I am the City Clerk, and we're here to present some information about some of the major changes that have been recommended. So first of all, the charter is something that is actually granted by the Arizona State Constitution. It grants some specific authority for the cities with a population of more than 3,500 to adopt a city charter. The provision recognizes the authority of locally elected decision makers to make local decisions and the ability of the level of government closest to the citizens to respond to specific needs in their communities. There are about 19 cities at this point that have adopted charters. Essentially, they're considered a constitution for the city. And it sets out the basic governing procedure for the local government. It includes overarching principles such as the form of government and requirements for public office, but does not include details such as tax rates and administrative processes, as the charter is not something that is designed to be easily changed. Charters are adopted by and amended by the citizens of the community, and that's through the election process, and that then becomes effective upon signature of the governor. So the Goodyear Charter was adopted by voters back in 1988. It's been amended a couple of times, including in 2019. And that point, that was when we had to move to consolidated elections to actually be in line with state statutes. But the biggest changes, well, actually the last comprehensive overview or review was done back in 2004. So as you can tell, 16 years, 17 years, it's been a while. Next slide. Next slide, Jenna. So on January 27th, 2020, City Council created the Ad Hoc City Charter Review Committee, and we're just going to call it the committee, and directed the committee to review the current city charter. Committee was charged with completing a comprehensive review to ensure consistency with language, best practices, and policies. Committee comprised of 6 Goodyear residents, and that was Renee Guillen, who was the chair, Jarrett Hickman, who was selected as the vice chair, Kent Hedges, Kelly Kessler, Shawanda Randolph, and Dave Schaefer. A 7th member resigned due to some work commitments and was unable to complete it. So the committee met about 7 months in 2020, but we did have to take a break because a little thing called the COVID-19 pandemic kind of occurred, and so we had to take a little bit of a break during the time that we were actually supposed to be meeting. But now during those meetings, each of the city charter articles was reviewed, and the committee had some really in-depth and really good conversations about it. In September of 2020, the committee made a number of major and minor recommendations to City Council. And the City Council selected or elected to go forward with that. Next slide, Jenna. So in October of 2020, City Council made the call for election, which is one of the things that we have to do by statute, referring the 10 questions to amend the city charter to the ballot. So there's one question that talks more about administrative and grammatical changes, but the other 9 have more substantive changes, and we're going to walk through those. Jenna?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Darcy, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and walk through some of the more substantive changes, but I do want everyone to know that a full list of every single change is available on the city's website at goodyearaz.gov/elections. And I also just want to take a moment real quick and thank you all for joining us today. I know that city charters may not be the most exciting topic in the world, for everyone, but I really appreciate those of you who took the time today to learn a little bit more about this issue. There we go. My apologies. So as I said, I'm going to walk through the changes that are more substantial in nature, but there are a lot of other administrative changes that I'm not going to cover in the presentation today. I do want to be clear that city staff can provide information, but we cannot advocate for or against any of the ballot propositions. So we can certainly answer questions and we can provide information about the impact of the changes, but we can't express opinions on whether or not these changes are good, or tell people whether or not you should vote for them. So the first major change I want to walk through today is the proposal related to whether or not the city should establish electoral districts. You may know that currently all of our council members are elected from the entire city, or what we call elected at large. Moving to a district system would mean that each council member would be elected from a district representing a specific geographic area of the city based on population. And within Arizona, there are cities that use both systems. Generally speaking, larger cities use district systems, and smaller cities use the at-large system, as we do currently. And just for example, in the city of Phoenix, each of their individual council districts has a population that's more than twice the population of the entire city of Goodyear. So currently, the charter mandates that the city would establish districts when the population reaches 150,000. Our population right now is just over 90,000, I think about 92,000. So it would probably be, years, if not decades, into the future before that threshold was met. So the Charter Review Committee that Darcy mentioned recommended that this portion of the charter be revised to require that a question be sent to the voters once the population hit a certain threshold. But they really struggled with determining what that threshold should be, because it's just, they felt so difficult to predict the future. And as we mentioned, since charters by their nature are not designed to be flexible, they felt it might be difficult to predict how they would want it to be in the future. So rather than mandating that an election be required at a particular point in time, the council requested that the electoral districts be removed altogether, and that a future charter review committee could then determine in real time if and when they felt that a future amendment regarding the districts should be presented to the voters. The next proposed change would establish January 1st as the beginning of the terms for the mayor and the council members. Currently, the charter does not specify an actual date other than saying that it shall be after the vote has been canvassed or has been certified. And so this would establish January 1st as the specific day for the start of new terms. The next change being proposed is related to establishing a council compensation committee of residents that would review and recommend compensation changes for the council members. If the recommendation made by that committee was an increase or a decrease of 5.1% or less, then the council could vote to accept the change. But it is important to note that the council could only accept or reject the committee's recommendation. They couldn't amend it or change it in any way. Any adjustments that were approved by the council in that manner would become effective on July 1st. If the recommended change, again, an increase or a decrease, is more than 5.1%, then it would need to go to the voters and be approved through an election. And any adjustments that were approved in that way would be effective after the election results have been canvassed or have been certified. Currently, council members cannot approve any adjustments to their own salaries, which means that any adjustments aren't effective until either the beginning of their next term, if they're serving another term, or until a new council member comes in. And so because of that, and because of the way that our terms are staggered, it results in council members sometimes having different salaries for up to, could be up to 2 years. And so this would make it so that any proposed changes did go into effect for all members of the council at the same time. This proposed amendment would be a new provision that would establish a process for the removal of a council member for unlawful conduct involving moral turpitude, fraud, malfeasance, or corruption. And it would require that 3 council members submit charges of unlawful conduct against one of their fellow council members, and then an affirmative vote of 5 council members for someone to be removed. Currently, the only method available for removing a council member is to go through a recall election, but there is no process for the council itself to be the judge of its members and to remove someone for unlawful conduct. So this would establish a process by which the council could do so. The next proposed change addresses what happens if a vacancy occurs in the office of the mayor. Under the proposed amendment, the council would select one of the remaining council members to serve as the mayor for the remainder of that term. And the council felt that this was appropriate due to the fact that since our council members are elected at large, as I mentioned before, it means that all of the council members are elected from the whole city. And therefore, any council member who were selected or were promoted, if you will, to serve as mayor would have already been elected by the entire city. Under a district system, the council felt that may be less appropriate because each council member is only selected by a portion of the city instead of by the city as a whole. But again, due to our nature right now of being at large, they felt that it was appropriate for the council to select amongst the council members to vacancy in the mayor's office should that occur. And if the member who's currently serving as the vice mayor is the council member that is selected to serve as the mayor, then a new vice mayor would also be designated from amongst the other members of the council. This change has to do with the merit system that is used for city employees. Currently, the charter specifies that all employees except the 3 appointed officials, so that would be the city attorney, the city manager, and the city judge, that all of the other employees except for those 3 are covered under the merit system as opposed to being employed at will. As we mentioned before, because charters are not easily to change, they usually don't contain administrative items such as this. And this proposed change would give the council the flexibility to determine by ordinance, so by a vote of the council, which city positions should or should not be covered under the merit system. There certainly, hasn't been any decisions. I don't want to give, the impression that this has been decided, but just by way of example, in other cities, it's often the case that perhaps department directors or deputy or assistant city managers are employed at will and are not covered by the merit system. And the final change that I want to discuss real quick is that, as we discussed earlier, the charter hasn't been comprehensively reviewed since about 2004. And as you know, the city has changed a lot in that time and will continue to change, of course, into the future. So this proposed change would require that the council consider the formation of a charter review committee at least every 10 years in order to ensure a periodic and comprehensive review of the charter is conducted. So this would be a new section that would be added, requiring the council to consider the formation of a committee. Those are all the changes that I wanted to highlight. I'll give it back to Darcy to talk about the election timeline.
So as you can see, we've started this process, and this is pretty much typical for elections, as we start the process many, many months before the actual election. So we've got the call of election that took place in October. We did some publications in both the Arizona Republic. I think we did do at least one in the West Valley View as well. We did request public arguments for and against, and we received no arguments. February 8th, which was yesterday, was the last day to register to vote for this particular election. And beginning tomorrow, the actual ballots will actually be in the mail. Residents should have received their publicity pamphlet. And that went out last week. And I understand from people that are here in my office that they actually have received theirs as well. And again, it's an all-mail ballot election, so that means that once the person receives that ballot, they can make their selections, seal it up, and they can actually bring it into our office. We'll have a ballot drop-off box that they can just drop it right in. If for some reason somebody gets their ballot, and this did happen, this is probably bad of me to say, I work in elections, but there was one year that it was like I couldn't get it right to save my life, and so 3 times I had to spoil my ballot and request another one until finally it was like, okay, I was so specific and so careful when I was filling it out. So yeah, I've been down that path. So we will have a ballot replacement site here at the city, and that will be beginning on March 1st. And we also will have Saturday hours, March 6th, and that will be from 8 to 5 as well. Jenna, if you could advance it. So we want to make sure that the information about the election gets out, because we want people to vote. I mean, one of the biggest things for a clerk is always to have people vote. We want our turnout to be a significant turnout. So I'm not for or against. I just want people to actually do the process and vote. So part of that is we've been putting information in focus. We've been doing good neighbor alerts. We've been doing our social media, and we're hoping that you, as interested parties, will actually tell your neighbors to vote as well. We also have a lot of information on our website. We actually have some information on our website that actually talks about each of the articles. If you click where it says Proposition 451 or 452, then it actually has a drop down that actually shows the table that the committee themselves put together as far as their rationale when they were making these decisions. And then if if you go forward then, so if, this is our website address, so www.goodyearaz.gov/elections. And if you have any kind of questions, comments, feel free to send it to the GY clerk at goodyearaz.gov. On the actual publicity pamphlet, we also have our contact information. So if you have any questions, we would certainly be ready to answer any questions. And if you have anybody that would like to receive this presentation, please let us know. Or if you think you have a location where we can maybe drop off some publicity pamphlets for interested parties, we can certainly bring a box over for anybody that might be coming in through your location. And at this point, I think we can open it up to anybody that might have some questions for us.
That'll be great. The way we're gonna, as Michelle had said in the beginning, the way we're gonna do questions, if you go to your reactions and raise your hand, we'll take the questions in order when asked. I'll unmute your microphone. You can ask your questions. Just please remember to speak slowly and clearly so everybody can understand you. So with that, if anybody has questions, please let us know. No hands have gone up yet.
Did we put everybody to sleep because that was such a dry topic?
I thought we just
I do have a question.
Ray, go ahead, please.
Mike down here. Is there any reason why the merit system would be utilized for a small city?
So the merit system is a very common thing. Every city that I'm aware of has the merit system, at least for the majority of employees. Essentially, the merit system it was originally conceived to protect employees from being unfairly fired when there's political changes that might occur. And so essentially it just establishes a process for discipline and for terminations. There to be some sort of performance or disciplinary issue. It outlines a process or a series of steps that would be followed. It allows the employee to appeal the decision, things of that nature. So the city does currently use a merit system for all employees except for those three that are directly appointed by the council: the city manager, the city attorney, and the city judge. And the proposed amendment would make it so that the council could establish by ordinance or by a vote of the council whether they wanted certain other positions to be included or not. And then, just for example, in some other cities, perhaps department directors, deputy city managers, assistant city managers are sometimes not covered by the merit system. The rationale, I guess, for that being that it allows the city manager to then have more flexibility in making staffing decisions at those senior levels in the organization.
Thanks, Ray. And Michelle S. has her hand raised. And I should note to everybody, which I didn't do in the beginning, aside from her duties as the executive director for Leadership West, Michelle is also a city council member for the city of Buckeye. So, Michelle, I'll unmute you, and actually you're going to get, there you go.
Yeah, so my question is, because I'm not going to get a ballot, but I might get asked this. Will the ballot actually list out like a yes or no for all approved items together, or will each proposed item be taken separately and you vote on each item, I guess, for lack of better words?
Good question. Good question. We kind of struggled with this because it's such a large change. We actually broke it down to most everything is by article. So it'll be all the changes in an article, either all the changes in that article is a yes, or all the changes in that article are a no. We did combine two of the really minor changes, and pretty much it was changing the word inhabitants to residents. because you have to remember is when this was originally written, it was back in 1980s, and the nomenclature at that time was just a little bit different. So we wanted to kind of update it, bring it, kind of more into a different century. And that was kind of our thing. Is so those two things had very minor changes. So those were actually lumped together. And I think it's like Article 1 and maybe 15. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I'm guessing. And we do have a sample of the ballot in the publicity pamphlet as well.
Which is also, by the way, available on the website. So if you go to goodyearaz.gov/elections, you can see a sample ballot, and you can also see the publicity pamphlet as well.
Some people on social media, it's a great place to learn, have asked about why an all mail-in and then the cost to the city or the cost to residents. Is that also in the pamphlet?
The actual costs are not in the pamphlet because we wouldn't actually know all the costs until after the printing and everything is completed. We actually contract with the county, and it actually turns out to be cheaper to do an all-mail ballot election and especially if you're the only thing on the ballot. And the reason for that is if you do a polling place location, you're actually staffing those polling places, and those people that are in those polling places do actually get paid. So it does cut down on the cost. The other thing is, through the years, it has become more of a convenience for a lot of people, especially if they work work outside the house or have other things that they do where they're not, they don't have like regular hours to actually have their ballot, take the time to actually read it. And especially since it is a longer ballot, it is 2 sides. We want everybody to take the time to actually flip it, to take the time and actually read what it says, and not have to be rushed if they're in a polling place. Many times you get, people stacked up, trying to wait in line to do that. And especially now with COVID, it's a little bit different. We've got, because we are going to be a ballot replacement site, we will have one of our rooms set up, and it will have everything set up just like almost a polling place. But, we've got the separations. It's our biggest room that we have currently. So it should allow everybody to have plenty of space and time to take care of their ballot when they're here.
And if I could just add one other quick point about the all-mail ballot, postal mail ballot. Every registered voter in the city of Goodyear will receive a ballot in the mail. So it's not like the regular election where you have to be on the permanent early voting list or you have to specifically request a mail-in ballot. With it being all by mail, every registered voter will just automatically receive one.
Thank you. Other questions from anybody else? No other hands are going up. Any final thoughts from either Darcy or Jenna?
Just get out and vote.
That's right. Ballots will be mailed starting tomorrow, I believe it is, Darcy. So watch your mail. You should be receiving it in the next couple of days, and just make sure you return it either by mail or in person by March 9th.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for this very informative presentation. It's, if you start to think about it, this will be an historic change for the city of Goodyear, without a doubt. So it's a chance for all the residents to help make history in the future of this city. So thanks to Darcy and Jenna from the City of Goodyear, Michelle Hess with Leadership West for co-hosting, and of course everybody who took time out of your day to come and join us on Zoom. If you're looking for more Zoom activities or other activities throughout the community, Southwest Valley Chamber's website and the community calendar has lots happening, so please check that out. So everybody have a great rest of the day. Hope you have a fabulous week, and as it says, live long and prosper according to Vulcan. So everybody have a great day, and thank you very much.